Hello, everyone. Welcome to a brand new live stream. I did this last week and it was great, so I had to do it again. If you were here last week, good. If you were not, welcome. We're going to answer some ASO questions. We're going to start with a tradition, a time-long tradition. We're going to look at what's in your cup. Tell me what's in your cup and where you're from in the chat. Where's my voice going today? And we're just starting. I'm drinking some green tea with a lot of berries and pomegranate, and it's actually delicious. And I'm here in New York City, and I don't know if it's sunny because I closed my windows. Well, I'll look later. So drop a line in the chat. Tell me where you're from, what you're drinking, and we're going to get to answering some ASO questions very, very soon. So I hope you have some good ones. Last time, I had so many questions that I couldn't get to all of them. Hopefully, I'll get to some of the ones that I didn't get to answer today. And if not, we'll get to answer some new ones. And the real cool thing about this is it's not just answering questions individually, it's also everyone who's watching is learning what everyone else is thinking about, is trying to do. And I really, really like that. I really, really like learning from others. So that's what we're going to do today. So let me know what's in your cup, where you're from, and we'll continue. Ooh, Raphael's in New Jersey. I'm not too far from New Jersey. I grew up in New Jersey. Fun fact. Now you know. Hello from Canada. Hello, Canada. What's in your cup also? Don't forget to tell me. If you got nothing in your cup, that's fine. It's all right. But, I mean, you should stay hydrated. Water is great. Coffee. Tea. I mean, I don't know if it's time for bourbon yet. It's kind of early here, so I'm not going to do that. But let's do this. Ooh, I see people shuffling in. That's good. I have so many screens at this point. I don't even know where to look. Hello from Latvia. Nice. We're international again. I really like this. Spain, Georgia. Georgia the state or the country? Just making sure. Just making sure. Ireland, drinking English breakfast tea. I think now is a great time for that, even though it's a little bit later in Ireland. And for all of those who are new here, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you can ask questions in the chat. That's how I'm going to take all the questions today. The format is going to be pretty straightforward. Ask a question in the chat about App Store optimization. I will bring it up on the screen and answer it. And if I need to, I'll show you the tools that I use to answer these questions myself. And we'll continue. I'll try to get through as many questions as I can in an hour. So let's see. Ooh, hello from Italy. Coffee in Portugal. That's nice. I've never been to Portugal. Maybe one day. Toronto. Okay, I see people are shuffling in. We're going to get started in a minute, so get your questions ready to drop in the chat. I'm going to start with a question, kind of a question half statement that I get all the time, and I saw something on Twitter that made me think maybe I need to address this. Every time I talk about ratings and how ratings work for App Store optimization, people question a little bit. So I've been looking at thousands of apps and thousands of keywords, and there's this direct relationship between how many ratings your app has and where it is ranked. Also, in addition to where your keywords are placed and which keywords you're choosing. So it's not on its own a standalone thing. It's more of a, it works really well when you do your ASO very well. You do your keyword selection and the way you do everything else keyword related. So realistically, if you don't have enough new ratings over the last 30 days is what I usually look for, you're really not going to get ranked. And I saw this tweet on Twitter, well, on X, on Twitter, post on X, whatever. I get into this every time. I'm just going to continue calling it Twitter. And the post was saying that there's no way that Apple cares about ratings. All they care about is crashes and in-app performance. And while I think many people would love to believe that, that's not what I've seen. That's absolutely false. There's just no way that Apple will do that because Apple doesn't really collect a lot of information from the app. They collect some things, and they collect them in a way that's generic enough so that they can collect them without dipping into privacy issues. And that makes it very difficult to be used for App Store optimization. So it's really a lot about ratings. And you can tell that as you start improving your ratings, meaning get more ratings per download, or get less or need less downloads per rating, which is a measure that I use, DPR, you see that your ranks start climbing across usually all keywords. So question number one is, do ratings matter for App Store optimization? And the answer is absolutely. Absolutely. And that's only from my experience. It's possible there's something else that I haven't seen that maybe is making this look like it's ratings when it isn't. I don't know. I've looked at enough things that I'm pretty sure it is. But that's the beginning of our live stream. Officially, we're on. So let's get some questions on the board. Let me bring my questions on the board and see what we can do. So the first question, where is my chat button? Aha, here's chat button. I almost confused it with a confetti button. We got some confetti too. Vernon is asking, you get confetti for being the first question that I'm taking. Vernon is asking, what is the largest amount of keywords you can optimize for in one App Store listing? And that's a wonderful question because traditionally the answer would have been 100 in the keyword list, 30 in the app name, and 30 in the subtitle, giving you 160 characters, which you can then use for keywords. Now, the App Store combines keywords together. So if you have home and great in any of your different pieces of metadata, home great or great home will be a keyword the algorithm will see you for. How much weight it will place on it really depends on where you use it. But that means 160 characters and then all the combinations that can create in terms of words. But there is actually a trick that will help you optimize for 10 times the amount. And that trick is use localizations. So in the US, the App Store indexes 10 different localizations, meaning the keywords that you place in 10 different countries or languages. And I have a full list of it on an article that I wrote because it used to be 2, then it became 5, and recently it became 10. So we know that there are 10 different localizations. Vietnamese is one of them, French is one of them, Russian is one of them. If you place keywords in English in those localizations, if you're not using them obviously for their intended language, Apple will read those and will rank you in the US for those keywords, and they could be totally different than the keywords you have in your English localization. They will also show those to devices that are set to that language, but that matters less. So you can optimize for up to 1,600 characters, which is a ton of characters. I usually use them as sets. So I will have a set that is dedicated for one purpose, one intent, and then I will have each country do a different intent. And I usually reserve 1 or 2 countries for off-the-wall ideas, crazy stuff I don't know if I'm going to rank in, crazy stuff I don't know if I should be ranking in, but I want to give a try to. And then if that works, I know that I can save it, put it into one of the sets, and move on. So that's how I would do it, and that's how many characters you have for App Store optimization. Let's see what's next. Next up, we have Tenpin is asking, a lot of my users say that discover similar apps in the you might also like section on the App Store. Is there any way I can influence my app appearing there on other apps in my niche? That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that other than using Apple search ads. There might be something I've not optimized for that section particularly because I'm mostly focused on intent. But with Apple search ads, you can go and you can target that and you can give that a try and see how much that can help you. Let's see what's next. Viola is asking, our most popular app, Video Delay Instant Replay, is a niche app, and people search for it using a video delay. Other keywords don't seem to drive downloads. Any ideas on how could it be improved? And so this is kind of normal. I've seen this happen, and I think I talked about this last week in the last live stream. There are apps that the intent for them is either really, really specific, like in this case, or the way people describe it is really, really specific. But that's not always the case. The case is that maybe they'll describe the main intent that way, but they're also trying to find it in other ways. And maybe the other ways have nothing to do with the video delay. Maybe it's the actual point of why you need video delay. I'm not entirely sure what video delay instant replay means. I think I can guess, but I would look for, what would I use this for? Is this when I am at sports events and I want to take a video and then replay it and then send it to someone? Is this something that I do with friends? Is this something that I do on vacation? So I would go through and think about all the specific use cases and then optimize for those. And I would use the localizations if necessary to extend that keyword list to be massive. Really think of as many things as you can that could potentially have anything to do with this. Try all of them and see what sticks. The other way of going about this is using Apple search ads and trying a research campaign or a discovery campaign. That's going to cost you. That's the only difference. And that doesn't always align with organic optimization. But that's a good way to get ideas. If you want to spend on it, run a discovery campaign for a very short amount of time, maybe a week, maybe two, and don't give it a huge budget and see what Apple decides is good for you. And then take those keywords and try to go through the same process as you would for regular keywords. Look at their popularity, look at competitiveness, look at competitor keywords for it, and see what that does for you. Now, we're actually coming out with a tool that will show you what paid keywords competitors are using, and so you don't have to spend money on a discovery campaign, and you can just get that data immediately for free, technically. So that's something we've been working on for a long time. It's going into beta, hopefully this week, but I don't know. You didn't hear this from me. It's not like I'm on video or anything. Hopefully this week. If you want to be on the beta, either drop a comment or send me an email, and I'll try to get you into the beta. We're going to open it up and see how people like it. It's something we've been working on for a long time. So that's my answer to Viola. Let's see what's next. As always, there are so many comments that my comment thing overflowed. So I'm going to try again. Okay, AJS is asking, hi Ariel, hello. How does Apple's search algorithm treat hyphenated keywords like push-up? So to my knowledge, push-up is really push and up, and the algorithm ignores the hyphen. And so when you optimize, very coffee today, you can optimize for push comma up in your keyword list, or push space up in your subtitle or name, or push dash up in your subtitle or name. They're all going to be the same. I would not put push dash up in my keyword list because that's kind of wasteful. So that's how I would do it. All right, Hadrian, which I remember from last time, is asking, is there any way to know what keywords are leading to downloads? I can't see anything in iTunes Connect. Wow, you called it iTunes Connect. It's been a long time since it's been called iTunes Connect, the good old days. No, there is unfortunately no easy way to know, or no way at all to know where downloads are coming from. The the one thing that I would recommend is look at the impressions that you have overall, and look at the keyword ranks that you have overall. So use a tool like Appkeywords. Let me show you real quick what I'm talking about, and bring my computer in, and we'll take the comments off just for a quick second. So what I would do is look at something like Appkeywords, and what this does is for any given app, it will look at all the keywords that the app is ranked in that we saw. So let's look at, for example, Audible on the App Store. And that's probably going to take forever. Oh no, it actually didn't. So it's ranking in almost 2,000 keywords. The odds are that most of the downloads are coming from the keywords where the position is highest, obviously, and the popularity is highest. So let's look at everything where the position is in the top 10. And then let's sort by popularity. Oops, by popularity. And so for your app, that would be the keywords that are driving the most downloads. You can do this for any app, obviously, because I'm doing this for Audible. But you should do this for your app and see what those downloads look like. And then look at the impressions that you are getting in your analytics report. And this will only be for your app. Or if you're using our app intelligence, you can look at the downloads for those apps and see if you can see any correlation between keywords and keyword ranks and downloads and impressions. And usually that's where you're getting most of your downloads. That's what I would go for. And this is a good reminder. We're running a Cyber Week special. I forgot to mention that last time. It was Black Friday special, but all of our ASO tools are 50% off. So this is 50% off, which is insane. This price is not coming back. And not coming back because it's just insane. We literally slashed it in half. And we have that on our ASO tools and also on our competitor intelligence tools. So you can see what kind of keywords competitors are using. You can see how many downloads they're getting, estimates. And you can see an estimate of the revenue. And you can see how that changes as keywords change. And that's something I look at all the time. And soon you'll be able to also see what keywords they're placing bids on, what keywords they're using, they're paying for in order to get traffic. So that's a really cool deal. There's a link inside the site, as you saw. I'm using the regular site just like everyone else. Or we'll drop in the chat a promo code that you can use and get this. It ends tomorrow, so use it quick if you want it. And if not, think twice about ASO. Alrighty, continuing. Where is my mouse again? I keep losing my mouse. There should be a show about me losing my mouse. Okay, so we have a new question. Hello, Ariel. Hello. When localizing an app in the Apple Store, is there any benefit or problem in repeating the same title in some languages? And the answer is no. There are no problems in repeating between different localizations. And I will stop coughing eventually. So what you want to make sure is that you're not repeating between the name, the subtitle, and the keyword list in the same localization, but then across localizations, you can repeat as much as you would like. And some people say that they do because there are stem keywords, meaning keywords that combine with everything else, and those you have to repeat because you want to use them. Apple's not going to hold that against you. Andres is asking, does a rating from an ASA download count the same as an organic one in terms of keyword rankings? And comments are back on the screen. And the answer is yes. Apple, from my knowledge, doesn't really care where the download came from. I'm not even sure they're tracking this for App Store optimization. And so once there is a rating, the rating is just a rating. And so you can use Apple search ads in order to kickstart organic by driving a lot of people to download the app and then optimizing to get those downloads to turn into ratings, and boom, you have a starting point. And that's something a lot of companies do and a lot of apps do, and it's pretty smart. Apple search ads is a whole thing, so optimizing it so that it's actually giving you money back, positive ROI, as they say, is a little bit tricky depending on the niche and depending on the app and depending on your budget. I did do a few live streams on Apple search ads. If you want those, we'll drop those in the comments later as well, but it's a good starting point. Evers is asking, does it make sense to repeat keywords in localizations, or should they be unique? We answer this, so I'm glad we answered the common question. That's already a win. 2 questions, 1 answer. Ajax is asking another question. I see on AF's keyword inspector, keywords with stop words have a different search score to the keyword itself. For example, fitness app versus fitness, they have different search scores. Yes. So the scores themselves are coming directly from Apple in this case, which means that Apple is ranking them differently. And that means that traffic to them is very different. But it gets really complicated because when you optimize specifically for the keyword app, it gets difficult. You can't really put it in the name of your app. For the most part, Apple will give you a metadata rejection. You can put it in the keyword list. It's kind of wasteful because Apple usually drops it. You could put it in the subtitle, but I feel like that's wasteful overall. It gets dropped and no one really cares. So it's really hard to target keywords like this. Keywords like something app or something free even. Up until a few years ago, you could, and you can no longer do that. So the apps that haven't changed can do that. Most apps can't. And that's kind of the thing. I would say mostly aim for if fitness app is better than fitness for, actually, let's take a look. I'm curious. So I'm going to head into Keyword Inspector where all this conversation started. And also my favorite tool. I really like Keyword Inspector. And let's look for fitness. Fitness is 60, and we're looking specifically at this popularity score. That's what I'm mostly interested in. And then let's look at fitness app. Oh, and fitness app is a 39. So, okay, that kind of makes sense. I think in this case, you don't really have to worry about anything specific and target fitness directly. Targeting fitness is going to be super hard, I can imagine. So it's not like it's going to be an easier one to target if you target fitness app, but just something to keep in mind. Okay, let's continue. RJ is asking, does localization help in the Play Store? And the answer is, from what I've seen, not really. Google doesn't really do anything as crazy as what Apple does when it comes to taking other localizations and indexing them for the US. And so I think that there isn't a huge benefit. Also on Google Play, there's auto translation, something that Apple doesn't do. So I think for Google, the value that's being put on different localizations is specifically for the different localizations, not for the US. Another question, any idea how words are prioritized when the different languages are combined? I've been asked this a few times, and I ran a few experiments, and the answer is I don't think that they're prioritized, meaning I think they all have similar or the same value. I could be wrong on this because it takes time to do these sort of experiments, and I've not been doing them for long enough to say this conclusively. But from what I've seen, it's pretty much all the same. I would say the US should always be your main localization, your target for all the most important keywords, just to be on the safe side. And then all the other languages are kind of the same in my book. Joe is asking, do you ever purposely add typoed keywords in your keyword fields? App Store, for example, crypto with the no Y. No, I don't, because the algorithm, one, has autocorrect built in at this point, so not many people actually type crypto with no Y and hit search. They'll type crypto, the autocorrect will autocorrect them either from their phone or right in the App Store, and then they're not going to search for the typoed keyword. This used to be a big thing back in the day before autocorrect was this prevalent, especially on the App Store. But I don't think it's worth the keywords. Now, here's the thing. If you have those extra localizations, throw those into one of the experimental off-the-wall idea localizations and see if that's doing anything. And meaning, see if that rises in rank after you put it into your metadata, track it with something like keyword performance, and see that change. And if that is going up and you make it into the top 5 and you see your impressions are growing in the analytics side of things, then you know that it could be useful. That's the only thing that I would do. So I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm saying mostly if you want to experiment, definitely experiment with it. If you don't, I would skip it. Okay, what do we got next? Andre saying, do apps from the same developer account influence each other? If one is improving in ranking, can that help other apps from the same developer? I've heard this before. I think the answer is no. I haven't really seen strings of apps from the same developer, but I have seen strings of apps from the same developer successful because the developer figured out how to do ASO. There are a few fitness apps by the same developer that are just kicking butt, and that's because they found out all the little tricks and figured out how to do it, and then they rise up in the ranks. There are other companies that do a variety of different kinds of apps that also have that same sort of mindset, and you can see it with the way they target their names and with the little tricks that they use in their ASO. But I don't think one helps the other. I think it's just the same developer knows what they're doing or figured out what works and just continues to do it. Okay, next. Hi, Ariel. Hello. How worried should I be to change my app's keywords? My app currently ranks 3 in the US for relatively weak keywords, so there are some downloads, but I feel like I can optimize the keywords. That's also a question I get pretty often, and specifically for people who have not done any sort of ASO, they've not done any sort of experiments, and something kind of worked maybe, and you're thinking, it kind of works maybe, so why would I ruin it? I think you should definitely experiment. Now, the easiest way is use one of the localizations. So don't change your English US localization, change your Spanish Mexico, change your Vietnamese, change your French, unless you're using them, of course. So find a localization from the list, and we'll post a link to that guide so you can see the list. Find a localization from the list and use it. And if that works, you will see ranks lifting up. And if they lift up, you know you can bring them into the US localization to kind of lock them in, and then continue to use the other localizations as means of experimentation. That's how I would do it. Mark is asking, how can I find out the revenue for a specific keyword when doing search ads? Currently, I only can see revenue for my ad group. I don't believe you can see that. I don't think Apple doesn't really have a lot of good data on revenue from keywords. They don't do any sort of real attribution. So that's unfortunately, to my knowledge, non-existent in the world of App Store Connect and Apple search ads. But again, you should think about a campaign as a set of keywords and not a single keyword, because if you're only targeting a single keyword and you're pouring all of your money into a single keyword, someone else can come in and pour more money into that keyword, and then you're kind of screwed. So you want to have a campaign that's very, very balanced, meaning you have the keywords that are really big and you show up in those, but you also have a variety of keywords that might be smaller, or might be smaller. It's not how you say that. That might be smaller, but they do provide consistent traffic, and you have enough of them so they kind of equal out at the end. And that should be better for your spend. That should also make your campaign a lot more resilient to changes in trends, and ultimately it will keep your downloads hopefully growing and bringing in more downloads. All right, hi Ariel, hello. What is the rough amount of installs that can come from ASO for a 40 popularity score keyword? About how many installs will come from being ranked number 1, 3, 5, or a 50 popularity score? And the answer is, I don't know. It changes so often, because if you think about it, popularity is really a normalized number between 0, really 5, and 100. And that 100 is going to continue to be pushed by apps like Instagram and YouTube and TikTok that are getting more and more and more visibility and downloads. And so that is a moving target as it grows. The best thing you can and should do is look at the top apps in your search keywords, in your search set, and then look at their downloads. That's what I do all the time. So let me show you an example, which I think will make it very easy. So in Keyword Inspector, we're going to go into, let's go to fitness, because I think that's an interesting keyword and it probably has a bunch of data. So fitness popularity of 60. Apple is, of course, the number one. We're going to ignore that because that doesn't really help us. And then we can look at let's look at all of these. And this is a shortcut. We're going to compare those in App Intelligence in a new window so I can come back to this. And what this will do is it will open the competitor intelligence report, but preload all the apps that we saw already so we don't have to manually look for them. And then it will save it as a set later so you can easily come back to it. And now you can start seeing the downloads over time. So we can easily tell who's winning here and who isn't. Who's leading this, I should say, and who's just following. And one thing that is, this is just the US. Let's round this out because even though the ranks even though the ranks are only for the US, or the ranks are derived from data in the US, those ratings in the US, those searches in the US, you really want to see even more. And so ultimately your app is probably available across multiple countries, and that's what I would look at. Oh wow, look at this. So before I showed you new ratings, and in new ratings you can see the one app really dominates, and that's why that app is number 2 in the search results. It should have been number 1, but Apple is going to be number 1. That's just how it works on the App Store. But because it has so many ratings, look at this in comparison to really everything else, 50, 100, 84 versus 1,000. So they're cementing their place as the app for fitness. And if you're trying to compete, there's no way you're competing with MyFitnessPal. You're trying to compete with these guys. When it comes to organic ranks, very interesting. Probably this one. So that's how I would do that. Next. RJ is asking, I'm getting into iOS development. I'm targeting a niche category. What should be my checklist for making a successful release? Ooh, that's a great question. I love this question. I was just talking to someone about making a guide about this before we started this live chat, live stream. So one thing that I would first look at is how many apps are in the category. And then I would look at how many apps are being ranked by the algorithm for that category. And then I would look at the popularity of the main keyword for that category and try to think about other keywords that would work. And if we reference the question we had back from Viola about having an app that really has just the one keyword that's working really well, you don't really want to be in that situation if you're coming into app development and you want to develop something new and you don't have a particular thing you want to build. So what I would do is head into Keyword Inspector, which we just saw, look for the keywords that, the main keyword for this, see what other words other apps are using, and then inspect them in the competitor intelligence report to see if there's even any money in this. Is there money in the US? Is there money outside the US? What should you optimize for? Then look at something. You know, let's do this. Let's just do this. So I would start with something like this, get to a point where I see all the apps are in the category. And then instead of looking at their downloads, if I decide that the downloads are worth it, I would look at their keywords. And with fitness, there are, of course, a ton of different keywords, so that's going to be pretty easy. But let's say this is really any niche. What this will do, this report, this is a competitor keywords report here on the left side. This will show you all the keywords that all the apps are ranking for. So it's very similar to the app keywords report that we saw before, but it's putting them all side by side. And from here, you can get a bunch of different ideas. Now, if this list is really tiny, if this list is 100 keywords, and I've seen that before, you probably don't want to optimize for that particular niche, or you want to find a spin, or you want to find some sort of a feature that will put you above the rest, because just a handful of keywords means that no one is really ranking for anything, which sounds pretty sad, but that's kind of the reality. For fitness, we have about 5,000 keywords, and you can see that MyFitnessPal is doing a way better job at a bunch of these, because look at all these gaps. MyFitnessPal is ranking somewhere, and they're not at all. So that's an opportunity. If you come across this, that's a great opportunity. But normally you don't see it as much. You just want to make sure that you're optimizing for something that does have a lot of variability. And I'm going to write a guide about this and put it out there. My plan, because people do come to me and say, I can make a game. I don't know which category to put it in. I want to make a utility. I don't know what kind. And we see this a lot, especially with the serial app builders who are trying to ship really fast. The whole build in public movement is trying to do the same thing, 4 apps by December type thing. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but I am saying if you do that, make sure that you start knowing what you're getting yourself into. So I'll write a guide about that and how to do it. And if you've liked everything up until now, I am looking at the likes. Give me a thumbs up. That's going to help. We're trying to beat last week's number. I don't know what last week's number is, but it's high. I think it's 60 or something like that. Let's try to beat last week's number. Can we do it? Can we do it? This is the Steve P method of getting more likes. Just getting more likes. So we're at 21 right now. Okay, I finally looked. I found the right screen that has them. Let's get that 21 to 50. We'll get it to 50. It'll be great. And if we get it to 50, maybe I'll do this again next week. Who knows? Maybe. Try. Let's try. But okay. Continuing. Where are my questions? Oh, I see the likes. Oh, there's a cool thing in YouTube that shows you likes. Okay. Well, okay, now I want more likes because they're really cool and pretty on the bottom of my screen. Keep them coming. Keep them coming as I look for my mouse that I lost for the 8th time. Oh, wow. That's a huge batch of questions. As always, we have a lot of questions, so I'm going to start going through them a little bit faster. We got 30 minutes. Let's see what I can do. Chat back on. Danny's asking, is it true that description field doesn't impact ASO? On the App Store, absolutely. Apple does not read that. Apple doesn't also read the the what's new or the marketing copy, so you can completely ignore those. The only things that Apple cares about are the name, first and foremost, subtitle, secondary, keyword list, also secondary. They're kind of on the same level. Now, they do care about, or Google Play does care about descriptions, and descriptions serve a major role in Google Play because you don't have a keyword list. And so you have the name and you have the short description, and those behave very similarly to Apple's keyword name and subtitle, but you don't have a keyword list to just say, these are my keywords, please acknowledge them. Instead, you have to do that through the description. And the description means that you have to optimize very differently than the name and the subtitle, because, or the name and the short description in this case, because it's 30 and 30 characters for the name and the short description, and it's up to 4,000 or 4,000 plus for the description on Google Play. So there you need repetition. There you need to use variations of keywords. And then you really need to spend time understanding how Google reads your description. And let me show you. I was trying to move fast, but I think this is worth it. And this is a question I get often enough, and I don't get to show this. So keyword density is a very important thing for Google Play, and that's because it doesn't have a keyword list. And so it aims to get the keywords that you are optimizing for out of your description. And Google is a lot better at this because Google is Google and all they do is read stuff. So my go-to app for testing this is Bumble. And you would expect that Bumble will do an amazing job on this. But look at the densities. And when I say this, let's see if we have a bunch of issues here. The density that you want to aim for is between 3 and 5%, 5 on the high end, meaning repeat it enough times that it makes up 3% of all the words in the description. And here we don't see that. So anything below is going to be really weak. 2, maybe it's like that lower end. So the algorithm is going to see it, but it's not going to assign a lot of weight to it. There's not much else going on, so we'll assign some weight to it, but that's pretty much where it ends. Everything else, all these ones, they're not really all that useful. So there's a lot of text in here, but the text is not really useful for search, for App Store optimization in this case, and for discovery. Now, Bumble probably doesn't need it because the name Bumble is something that people go into Google Play to download, maybe more so than typing in dating and maybe the smaller apps. I don't really know what the smaller apps are, maybe OkCupid or one of those, or Hinge, maybe those need to be ranked at the top of dating. Bumble probably doesn't need to, so they didn't take the time to do it. This does take time, even when you have a tool like this. And as you change stuff here, things here will change. So there's a very easy optimization loop here. That still takes a very long time because crafting text is hard. And using ChatGPT for this is, it's nice, but it's not perfect. I did a live stream on ChatGPT, and I showed how I would use this. This is one of the least favorite things I have when it comes to App Store optimization. I dislike writing descriptions because I don't think anyone reads them, number one. And even if they do read them, I don't think they matter. But they do matter for keywords on Google Play, so you have to do them, and you have to do them well. And it's just a process. And I tried to use ChatGPT and other AI to do this. Didn't really help as much. It gave me some generic stuff that I didn't love. In some cases, it actually gave me descriptions that I'm pretty sure I wrote because they're really, really niche, which I thought was actually really cool. But take the time to do it. It's definitely worth it. Even if you only spend an hour or 2 hours on this before you ship and you don't change it for the next 10 iterations, that's still going to be good. And aim for 4 to 5 keywords that are in that 3 to 5% range. Alrighty, so that was description. Umid is asking, when localizing on Apple Store, is it enough to just localize the store, or does the algo give importance to in-app localization and localization of screenshots? Great question. So you don't have to localize in-app specifically for ASO. The two are completely separate, and you can do one and not the other. Your app itself can be optimized for all the languages or localized into all the languages. And if your metadata isn't, your App Store optimization is not going to improve. So there are two separate things. I did look into screenshots to see if there's any connection between the text and screenshots and ASO. And to my knowledge, there isn't. Someone told me that someone told them at Apple that there is. I tried to prove it over the last year and a half. I couldn't. I will continue trying until I guess continue trying. But so far, I don't think so. Now, if you're localizing specifically for the language, you should definitely localize your screenshots in addition to your keywords. If you're actually localizing, though, not specifically putting US or English keywords in US or for US ranks. I did do a live stream with someone who does this for Google specifically, and he took us through how he did A/B testing on screenshot localizations for Google Maps in the UK. And it's amazing. The difference they've seen from localizing was actually huge. So I think that's definitely worth it. Or more than that, it's definitely necessary. Okay, Anders is asking, Anders is talking to Mark. I'm going to continue. Anders is also asking, does a rating in Mac App Store count towards iOS App Store rankings? Also, iPad rating counts for the iPhone rankings, or all separate? From everything I've seen, it's all separate. iPad works towards search for iPad apps. Mac works towards search on the Mac App Store, and iOS is iOS. So each one is independent. Hey, Ariel, any tips on web to app transition? I'm not entirely sure what you mean by this. If we're talking development, then we can talk about this for days. If we're talking in terms of getting people from your website to your app, there's so many different ways to do it. There are the banners, there are pop-ups, there are many, many ways that will drive traffic. I think all those are worth it. Ajax is asking, is trying to create keyword variants, combinations across name, subtitle, and keyword list without splitting the keyword worth trying to do? And the answer is absolutely. Apple will combine them, and Google will do the same thing. So both of them have the same really simple mechanism for combining keywords or combining words into keywords, and you definitely want to play into it. Definitely want to play into it in order to expand the amount of keywords that you can have. And you can see that if you look at really any big app out there, they usually are showing up in hundreds or thousands of keywords, and that's all of that off of those 160 characters for the most part, because localizations have not become a big thing up until about a year ago. And how can they be in 1,000 keywords if they only have 160 characters? That's because of all of those combinations. So the more combinations, the more better. And that's something that I spend when I work directly with people. I spend the most time trying to find those right combinations to get to as many keywords as possible. Okay, another question. Should I include a mix of localized and English keywords in a specific country? Does it count as repeating keywords if you have the same English word in English, Polish, Spanish, if it's popular? Now, it doesn't count as duplication because the algorithm looks at the actual characters more so than the meaning. So it's not going to translate them and realize that fitness in one language is fitness in another and only take one. It will take the one that's most local. But there is this weird thing with the App Store, and maybe you should optimize for both. And the reason is, I've seen this in the US and I've seen this outside the US, and it really depends on the language. But in most countries outside the US, English searches are still, for the most part, more popular than localized searches for most categories, not for all categories. And so fitness in, for example, in Portugal might have fitness, the word in English might have a higher popularity than the way you would say fitness in Portuguese. I don't know exactly why, but my theory on this is that most apps don't localize into most languages. Most of the big apps will localize into a few languages, the important ones, and some will localize into every language. But for the most part, most apps are in English. That's just how it is. And so in order to get found, they have to search in English. And that's the same for really all the countries that don't speak English. They will search in their local language, and it's not going to bring up a lot of results. Now, in some cases, for some very generic terms, we will see that Apple will float some apps that are not localized into that language, but do have keywords that match if they were to be translated. I don't believe that's something the algorithm does for all the keywords. I think maybe Apple did something only for the most important keywords so they can make discovery a little bit better, because ultimately, if someone buys an iPhone and they can't find a fitness app in their local language, they might not buy an iPhone. And they don't want that. This is exactly why Google does automatic translation for metadata, because they want apps to be found by everyone and not just by the people who speak the language. But ultimately, if you can, you should localize. And now, I did see something interesting where there are very large populations of people in a country that speaks a different language. For example, Arabic here in the US or Russian in the US. You will see apps that are targeting Russian and Arabic in the English localization. And this is before Apple expanded to include both Arabic and Russian for this particular reason. And I have helped apps to do that and get more visibility. So make sure that you look at the popularity in different languages in the country you're targeting. So maybe it's English in Portugal, maybe it's Russian in the US. Just make sure that you know the differences between the English version and the localized version. Okay, that took a while, but that was very important. So hopefully I'll see more of that in the App Store. Okay, next question. This is a name I don't know. Welcome, Bull. How does Appfigures calculate competitiveness, and can we rely solely on competitiveness while optimizing for keywords? Is a good question. We have our own algorithm that looks at the top results and then looks at different performance characteristics of the top results. Basically, what's making them float into the top 10, or what's making them stay at the top 10. And the closer they are to they're here to stay versus we don't know, that's how much the competitiveness is going to go higher. We should probably document how we do that. Maybe we'll do that in the future, all the technical details. But I would actually not use this on its own. And the reason is it's specific for the keyword, meaning that a keyword that has a competitiveness of something and a popularity of something, those two scores work together to tell you if it's important or if it's relevant for you. Competitiveness on its own, without even looking at the competitors, is going to be a little bit tricky. It's definitely useful, and you could use it on its own if you have a list of, let's say, 100 keywords, and you want to easily aim for the easier keywords. Then you can probably filter out all the keywords that have a super high competitiveness. A competitiveness of 100, of 90, maybe even high 80s. Those are going to be incredibly tough because it means that a category leader is in the top 5 results. And a category leader is an app you can hardly beat unless you become the category leader. So we're talking when you're competing with TikTok, when you're competing with Instagram, when you're competing with WhatsApp, when you're competing with these apps that get so many downloads and so many new ratings, even if they don't intend to, it's going to be really hard for you to get in. And that's why you want to erase those. Below that, I would look at a combination of the competitiveness and the popularity, and you want the highest popularity and the lowest competitiveness for the keywords that you believe are relevant for your app. Aaron is asking, should I offer keywords in different languages for different localizations? And I just answered that. I think the answer is yes. I would definitely try to do that, depending on where your downloads are coming from. If you know that you have a lot of downloads in a country that doesn't speak English, you should probably try and optimize for that country and see if downloads go up. But the same can go for countries where you want to have more downloads but don't have enough. Try to optimize for that language or localize for that language and see if that gives you any increase in downloads in that country. I usually do that over about a month because that's how long it takes for new things to come up and for people to see them and to see the results. So after about a month, it works. You did well and you should keep that localization. If it doesn't, you probably don't want to because localizations take a lot of effort. Okay, another question. My app is on Play Store for 3 years. It's competing in a very crowded space of invoice billing and accounting for small business. Ouch. Organic downloads are very less. Done many things, but no luck. Oof, that's all I can say. Billing, invoice, any sort of B2B stuff is really competitive because if you think about why people download apps, they have an intent. And that intent is that they want something done. Now, when I want something done for home, if I need a food timer, I don't know, something simple, if I can't find it or if I find something that doesn't work for me, I'm probably going to be okay with it. I'll just use it and move on with life. But when it comes to business, they need something, and there's usually some sort of either time saving, cost saving, making money. There's some aspect of it that will help their business. And once it helps their business, they're really into it. And so they're going to pay you more. They're going to be better subscribers. It's really, I think, beneficial to go after that target, but it is going to be really crowded as you've seen. So what I would do, especially if you don't want to dip into paid downloads, you would want to go after those intents. So instead of targeting accounting for small business, which is kind of generic, and I bet you everyone is targeting, look at specific actions that people want to take. And I'm thinking even more specific than account invoicing or invoice clients. Let's go with like invoice editing clients or billing for invoicing for video editors, something like that. So go as really as a niche and specific as you can and try to aim for as many keywords. Make sure your description has a broad, that it just attracts, no, that it attacks. Maybe that's a better keyword, a better word, that it attacks. I'm using too many words. That's what happens. That it attacks a wider variety of keywords, and so that the algorithm sees you for more of those things and use those in the name and also in the short description, and that's really what you want to get. And that's how you can kind of kickstart an app. And it doesn't have to be a new app. It can be an app that's been around for 3 years and wants to do more. That's how I would do it. I would go after all those very niche specific intents, build up, see the downloads go up. And as the downloads go up, the ratings will go up and the performance will go up. And as long as your app doesn't crash all the time, you should see those ranks go up because Google does care, unlike Apple, about crashes and about in-app performance. All right, what's the next? More. Okay. Hey, Ariel. Hey, Adrian. If a user opts out of app tracking, does that mean MMP data isn't 100% reliable? Example, using Revenue Cat to track ASA keyword downloads to purchases. I believe the answer is no, because I don't think that has to do with app tracking. I could be wrong on this. That's a better question for David at Revenue Cat or Charlie at Revenue Cat for their specific implementation. I'm not 100% sure. Claudia is saying, thanks for the rich Q&A. You're welcome. I'm really enjoying this. I really enjoy knowing what people are after and being able to give answers. So I'll continue. Next, is iOS development better or building for macOS? This should not be a question. There is no traffic on the Mac App Store, unfortunately. The Mac App Store has never developed beyond where I would like for it to be with what it could do. I think Apple just hasn't done enough in order for the Mac App Store to be a viable business for developers, specifically on the Mac App Store, meaning not sell outside the Mac App Store, because you want to get all that visibility from the store itself. iOS development is where you want to be. And I'm not saying that only because we have tools for ASO for iOS, because we also have tools for iOS for Mac. They've been beta tested for a long time by a bunch of people that I just got from Twitter. We're going to be opening that up very soon. If you want to test our ASO tools for Mac, let me know, and I will add you to that beta before we open it up to everyone. Okay. Claudia is asking, well, we are ranking well on somewhat irrelevant keywords and poorly on the ones we'd prefer. Do you have any ideas for how to change this? Yes. Most of the time, you will rank for keywords that kind of combine into the keywords that you are optimizing for that have a very low popularity, usually 5, which means next to no traffic. Maybe a search a month, probably more, but not much more. And so those you get for free technically, which means that you're not really ranking well for any keyword that you're optimizing for. That's what you have to focus on. So you have to figure out if you're not optimizing for the right keywords. Maybe you're going after keywords that are too competitive. And a lot of the time, the mistake that I see most developers make is they look at the number of, because I do say ratings are so important, and they do look at total ratings and they compare. And it's not. It's the ratings in the last 30 days. So look at your ratings in the last 30 days. Do they match any of the apps in the top? If you have more ratings, then you can be ranking, and it means that you're probably doing something incorrect with your keyword placement or maybe repetition. But if you are, if you see that you're way off, then that's probably why. And the best way to change that is to go after keywords where you're not way off. And using a more specific intent is usually a good way to go about that. And if you can do that, if all the keywords are really challenging, then find keywords that are slightly less challenging and build many of those, a long tail strategy, as it's called. Juan is asking, hi Ariel, hello Juan. If a keyword is a part of an app's name, like my app WalletSmith, where the keyword is a wallet, can I still use it in the App Store app name, or does that affect ranking? So combined name, so something like WalletSmith, the algorithm doesn't see it as wallet as Smith because the algorithm doesn't know where to make that break. It doesn't know what you thought when you were putting this together. So WalletSmith and wallet in the same name is going to be fine. It's not going to be localization. It's not going to be duplication. It's also not going to be localization, but it's not going to be duplication. Let's see what else. I'm really running out of time. So let me try and find questions that come up very often. Did I skip anyone? Let's see. Did I skip anyone? We need a voting system for this. That would be nice. Okay. Okay. Hang on. Oh, Vernon just upgraded with a discount. That's awesome. Welcome aboard, Vernon. Hopefully you're going to be happy with all the tools. And if you haven't yet, I believe we have a link in the comment in the chat that will give you that promo code so you can take care of it as well. Make use of it as well. I'm really mixing up all the words today. Okay. Continuing, so RJ is asking, please give me top 5 ways for ranking on Google Play. I've tried A/B testing for short description, long description, logo, always the same variant, which was default, always wins. Any other ways? So A/B tests on Google Play don't actually change your rankings because all that A/B tests can do is improve your conversion rate. You should definitely try them and you should definitely use them, but they don't help with App Store optimization for discovery. They help with that second stage of turning that impression into a download. On Google Play, what you really want to do is you want to optimize for the right keywords, and Google Play is a little bit more challenging because of that long description. Take the time, write a much better description, analyze your description, and make sure you're hitting all those keywords that you're looking for, and then make sure that they're also being used in the name and also in the short description. That's what you really want to go after. If you still can rank after this, make sure you're getting those ratings. You really want those ratings, and make sure that you have no crashes or no problems with the app. That's really the big thing for Google Play. And then after that, you should have more. You should see your keywords go up. And if they still don't, you need to pick better keywords. It's hard to say pick better keywords or different keywords, but that's really what it is. If a keyword is too complicated, too competitive, you're just not going to be able to rank for it for many reasons. And you don't even want to try. You want to go after what you can rank in and slowly become stronger so you can rank in more things. Mark is asking, is there a way to see estimation of downloads for a specific keyword or just the popularity score? And the answer is there's no good way to see the estimation for number of downloads for a keyword. I know that there are some competitors who do it. I don't think it's accurate at all from the little that I've done. We are trying to work on models that will kind of reverse engineer that. They're not good at all. And that's why we haven't put anything out there. We have this philosophy that if something is not really useful, it's misleading. It's a Boolean. Either it's really useful or it's terrible. And that's why we don't do that. And I've not seen any good way to do it yet. There are some ways off of Apple search ads and some other stuff. And some people try to reverse engineer the popularity score into downloads. But from everything I've seen, it moves too fast to be reliable or even useful. And it's so specific. So unfortunately, no. But again, if you think about what I said before, Apple search ads as a single campaign full of keywords, ASO is the same thing with just one campaign as opposed to potentially many campaigns. It's really everything about your app that's helping, and that's what you want to see. So go back into app keywords, see which of your keywords are ranking at the top, then filter them out by rank, and then sort them by popularity, and you'll know which keywords are giving your app the most downloads, or if you have that, if you have access, you can do that for competitors as well, and you'll get the same idea, and then you can steal those keywords. I mean, borrow those keywords and use them. So that's that. All right, John is asking, if I put the app for external testing using TestFlight, then when the app is realized, ask the tester to rate the app, will Apple think the ratings are too fast and reject them? This is an interesting question. I've heard from several people this concept of the rating is too fast and Apple rejects it. I don't know that it's true. I think maybe if you prompt for a rating immediately after the download, that's going to be iffy, and it may be a technical complication with the way Apple does its tracking. It may be that Apple specifically has a rule that says if someone just downloaded the app, there's no way they're going to know if the app is good, and that rating is probably fraud or not useful. Now, I don't think it has anything to do with TestFlight, because ultimately, TestFlight is not, I think everything that happens on TestFlight stays in TestFlight, kind of like Vegas. And so the ratings from a TestFlight build, I don't even know if you can rate a TestFlight build. So that's not going to have any sort of impact on your ASO. I would never try to get a user to give me a rating right after a download. I think that's just too aggressive, and it doesn't give you the experience you want, because ultimately you're building an app for people. You're not building an app for Apple's algorithm. You want to help the Apple's algorithm, but you don't really want to make it so that users are second-class citizens. So I just wouldn't do that, and then you never get into that potential position. And specifically with TestFlight, I don't think that has any impact, so you're safe. And we're really running out of time, so let's see. I'm going to try and take, we have 3 more minutes. I'm going to try and take as many questions as I can. Let's see. Avers is asking, does it help for ASO if iOS app has Apple Watch app as well? I don't think so, but this is actually a good question. So Apple does have these little tricks, and the tricks are, if you use things that Apple wants you to use, they will boost you in search results. And those things, to my knowledge, are promoted in-app purchases, especially for subscriptions, and also in-app events. If you run an in-app event, you're going to get a boost. And even if you don't have as many ratings as the apps above you, you're still going to bypass them for the most part. It's getting a lot more competitive now because everyone knows this by now. It started about 1.5 years ago, and everyone is trying to have an in-app event and a promoted in-app purchase, but it's still worth doing. I have not seen any indication that something like an Apple Watch app helps with it. I had a similar question about Apple Wallet. Yes, Wallet. And I haven't seen any real indication that that gives a boost. And I think that's because those are a little bit more niche. But definitely something interesting, and I will continue to keep up with what is it that Apple boosts. And it's usually whatever the latest and greatest thing is, or whatever they announced at WWDC in the last 2 years. That's kind of how I do this. Ooh, okay, this is kind of a support question, but I'll take it. This is coming from LinkedIn. We're also streaming on LinkedIn for those of you on YouTube. And for those of you on LinkedIn, we're also streaming on YouTube. So Pranad is asking, why is there sometimes a difference in Appfigures versus App Store Connect for downloads and revenue? And the answer is App Store, Apple and App Store Connect tracks revenue and downloads with a different time zone. They have 2 options. One option is UTC, which is very new and something that's kind of locked into Apple. And the other is local time zone. And local is the local time zone, which is what Apple considers a day in the region where it gets the revenue and the downloads from. So a day for the US is one set of times, and a day for Germany is one set of times, and a day for the UK is one set of times, and they aggregate it all into a single day with no timestamp. So you can't really work it out to which time zone it is. That's what we have access to through the reports we download from Apple and through all the ways we get data from Apple. And so if you compare us to the UTC, we might be a little bit off. If you compare us to that, we're going to be 100% specifically exactly the same. And if we're not, send an email to support, and maybe something else is going on with your account, but I've not seen any real indication that that should be the case. Okay, I think we have time for one more question, so I'm going to take this one. I chose it at random, so hopefully it's good. Hey, Joe. Do you have any words thoughts on the AdMob AdSense CMP GDPR requirements coming on January 16th? How will you think this will affect revenue, especially because ads can be turned off with the CMP form? Oh boy, there's a long answer to this, but the short answer is, yeah, it's not going to be fun. You've seen everything that's been happening over the last, I want to say, 2 to 3 years with people trying to get away from this, and specifically Apple fighting this, and the impact was humongous. Many apps were no longer able to get positive ROI, and because of that, if you follow my most downloaded, especially my most downloaded series where I rank the most downloaded apps in the world every month, you'll know that especially in the games section, most of the hyper casual games that were really prevalent before app tracking transparency, for example, those have really stopped climbing all the way up until maybe a couple of months ago. So it took them a few years to figure out how to get positive ROI again. That's the ad networks and also the advertisers. I think this is probably going to slow that down and kind of stop it in a way, but I am not entirely sure. I'm looking forward to seeing what would happen. All this back and forth is really funny. I find this interesting, and I find what Apple is doing with app tracking transparency on one side and Apple Search Ads on the other to be probably a case study to be studied in future years. Let's see if there's anything else that I can cover before I am going. And ooh, okay, I'll end with this because it's fun. Claudia is asking, what about the Apple TV App Store? Any interest? And I would say generally, no. It's so difficult to do anything more than watch things on the TV. And I've been an Apple TV user from day one. I got the dev kit. I love the Apple TV. I have it on all my TVs, and I can't use anything else. But I don't really play games on it, not for lack of trying, but because it's not natural. And also not because I don't want to. I really want to. I want to try, but I want to play something casual. I don't want to have a game controller. I don't want to do anything too crazy. And so it just doesn't work. And that's for games, something that the TV can do really well with a big screen. For apps, there isn't enough variety. Apple doesn't make it really easy to discover new things. So I think much like the Mac App Store, Apple has not done enough to push this. They might in the future. I kind of doubt it. I used to think that would be the case for the Mac App Store, and it wasn't. But I would say if you have an app that fits the Apple TV, it's a channel, or it's maybe a game if you're into that, give it a try. But otherwise, I would not waste any time building specifically for the Apple TV. And I wanted to. I really wanted to. My brothers and I wanted to build a game for the Apple TV when it just came out, and we started, and it was just really inconvenient. So there's one last question that I think is important. Does retention impact ASO? And the answer is no and kind of maybe. On the App Store, no, it doesn't really have any impact. Once the download is done, that's it. ASO is done. On Google Play, if people delete your app really quickly, so very short retention, that actually hurts your ranks and you will drop really fast. So that's really important because if you are optimizing for a keyword that is irrelevant for your app and you somehow manage to get successful in it, people download your app and realize, oh, this is not what I was looking for, delete it. That's going to crush you. So you definitely don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you're optimizing for something that people will download and hopefully retain. Beyond that, it doesn't really matter as much. I don't think there's a difference between 30-day retention and 80-day retention and 120 and 90. I think it's mostly about the initial wave. So people download and then people keep it. So immediate retention, maybe day one retention. I would kind of stop there. And that's all I have for you. Hopefully you enjoy this. I've not looked at the likes. Let's look at the likes and see what's going on. Let's see if we're going to do this again next week. We're at 38 likes, so a strong maybe. But it's the last few moments, so if you haven't liked this already, give it a like. I like seeing the little hearts pop up on my screen. I don't think they pop out on video. They just pop up for me, but that's still good. In any case, keep in mind the Cyber Monday discount or Cyber Week discount is ending tomorrow, so make sure to use it as quickly as you can. Again, this price is just, it's funny. It's not coming back, at least for a year. And I'm not just saying this to get you to hurry up to do it. It's wild. I mean, it's 50% off for a whole year. So go ahead and do that if you want to get better ASO tools. And if you have any more questions, or if I didn't get to answer your questions, drop it in the comments to this video, not the chat, the comments, because the chat is going to close. The comments will continue. And I will try to answer them later today and over the next few days. I always say I will, and I run out of time, but I will do my best. If not, hit me up on Twitter, and I will try to answer them as well. That's pretty much all I have for you. and I will see you next time.